name is Dr. Johannes Christian. I'm the pastor emeritus of the Adoration and Peace Baptist Church here in Columbus, Ohio. And I stand before you because I really am advocating for a fresh start, a second chance. It's the premise for my ministry, and it's the premise for my thrust in our community. I do realize that there may be some health benefits medically for the legalization of marijuana, but we're not here today to argue that point.
That's right.
We're here because so many African American and Hispanics, men and women, have been incarcerated. And when they come out, it is a hard road for them to climb. If we pass a bill that allows what they've done to be legalized, it only stands to reason that wherever they were incarcerated should be expunged from their record. So that's why we're here this afternoon. Thank you.
Ian, can you give some examples of offenses that Issue 3 would make legal that people could apply for now?
Sure. So when Chris is growing 4 plants flowering in his house, I'm just saying, this hypothetically, Chris Van Oker is growing 4 flowering plants in his house, and the police happen to knock on the door because the stereo is too loud. It could happen, and they find these 4 flowering plants. Chris would be arrested today under the Issue 3. That wouldn't happen. Bishop has 4 to 8 ounces of marijuana in her house from her grows. Today, she would be arrested. Under the Issue 3, she would not be. Let's say Jim is, you might be in Toledo and you might be walking down the street with an ounce of marijuana in your pocket. He would be subject to a citation, and it wouldn't be that big of a deal for the cost of it, but he'd lose his driver's license and all these other collateral consequences that would come. That wouldn't be the case under Issue 3 because as an adult, we treat him like an adult. We treat marijuana like alcohol. We allow him to have, and all of you, to be able to possess an ounce of marijuana and to grow your own marijuana at home. We'd also allow people to have their own stores. So what we've got today in my neighborhood, when we talk about people that are dealing drugs, I've got a drive-through drug dealers in my neighborhood. That is the real monopoly. That is the real cartel. These are people that do not create legitimate jobs. They do not pay taxes, and they are selling drugs right now to kids on the street. If we regulate this whole process, we actually end up having safer communities, safer streets, but ultimately you have the ability for folks that have been caught up in this system and had a part of those 300 collateral consequences find a way forward, come from the shadow to the light, and be able to become productive citizens.
So besides the home grow offense, what other felony offenses would be applicable to this?
The felony offenses, that might be the only one, but you know what, the reality is you have more people getting arrested for misdemeanors than for felonies, right? So that's really the problem. The misdemeanor, there's this terrible hoax that is perpetrated when we talk about decriminalization. It's still criminalized. People are lured in believing it's really not that bad. I just heard folks in law enforcement say this really it's not that big a deal. The consequences aren't that high. Well, you know what? They are that high when you can't get to work because you don't have a driver's license. And they are that high when you can't get to college because you can't have student financial aid. And when you're kicked out of a house and away from your family, it's incredibly high. And when you can't work anymore because you're forbidden from ever having that license. If you're a plumber or a barber or a nail technician or a realtor, all these are state licensing issues. When the law says that you cannot have this license and you are not permitted to work in the field in which you have been trained, and there is a great not only injustice to that person but to that family and the generation around that. And it goes further because it also says, you know what, when you take away humanity and you take away a person's ability to care for themselves and others, then you leave them no alternative but to do things that are unjust. That's right, because they have to feed themselves and they have to feed their family. And when we don't deal with this today, we're going to have greater problems down the road. Yes?
And there's a key constituency here that this could affect. The college-age students age 18 to 20 it would still be illegal for them to use marijuana if issue 3 passes.
Yes, it would.
And that sticks on their record. But your Fresh Start Act wouldn't pertain to them. They'd still have that on their record.
If it was for medical use, you're right, Joe. It was in some respects it wouldn't, but in other respects, in greater respects, it would. You still have people that would be affected with driver's license and also for student financial aid and housing and employment. But yes, I mean, you cannot solve everything, but we are taking an incredible step forward. No other state has taken this step forward that we have taken. I mean, and I realize and grant you that Ohio is not always seen as a very progressive state on a lot of things, but on this we are taking a very progressive step forward. Oregon recently passed marijuana legalization, and just this year now they are working on just exactly what we're working with on Fresh Start Act. It took California 18 years. So we can't take care of everything, but we are taking care of taking an incredible step forward.
Well, what do you say to those kids that are 18, 19, and 20 that are going to get caught? Because they're not going to stop using marijuana. They've used it for God knows how long. They'll keep using it. So what do you say to those kids who are going to all of a sudden be caught in the middle because they won't be able to get
Joe,
there?
they're caught in the middle right now. They are affected right now, and that just because this doesn't affect them and directly impact them today, there are a greater number that are impacted. Look, the reality here is that it's not just that age group, it's also that look, blacks and whites consume the same amount of marijuana across the board. But if you're black, you're 4 times more likely than white folks to get arrested. So now we can't deal with every injustice from 18 to 21, but we can certainly take an incredible step forward. And I grant you that we can take more steps forward, and we need to, but this is a step that we are taking, and it's an important one.
Ian, just to be clear,